Welcome, welcome, welcome to FIT Chat
Mhm.
Chit Chat. I'm your hostess, Devondrea Sanchez, also known as the FIT Therapist, founder, owner, and client of Finding Inner Transformation, where we believe a fit mindset is more than the physical. It is mental, emotional, and more importantly, it is spiritual. So we are just super excited today that I have the opportunity to not only speak to someone who I admire and think she's an awesome person, but an opportunity to speak to a breast cancer survivor. I'm going to let her introduce herself in just 1 minute, but just so you know that if you have a comment, feedback, or question, go ahead and put it in the chat and we will answer it. If you're watching this in the recording, we ask that you leave a question, feedback, or comment as well, and we'll get it over to the appropriate person. So we thank you all for joining us right now, and I'm going to introduce Miss Angelina and allow her to introduce herself, tell us where she's from, and any important thing that she would want us to know. Thank you, Angelina, for joining us.
Thank you for having me. My name is Angelina Scholes. I am 55 years old. I'm a single mom of 4. I have 3 boys and 1 girl. I have a granddaughter as well. I work for KCAO. I'm a preschool teacher for about 16 years. And most of all, I am a cancer survivor. It will be 5 years in March.
Yes. 5 years. That's beautiful. And I feel like I know all her family and her grandchild because I get to see them often on Facebook.
Yes.
She is not afraid
I have 3 girls and 1 boy. My oldest range from 32 and my youngest is my boy, which is 18. And my granddaughter.
Her babies. Listen.
Yes. Yes.
So I just wanted to have Angelina on as we left out of the month of breast cancer awareness. I just believe that, and FIT believes that there is no month that we can designate to not bring awareness to health, right. Whether it's, a survivor story or someone who did not survive, we can always bring some awareness. And hopefully today, we are able to help some folks out who are either had the experience, whose parent had the experience, or a loved one, and just what this story, her story, where she gets to own, right? Because everyone has their own journey and their own walk. Yes. So Angelina, as we're getting started, just tell me, at what age were you diagnosed, and how did you even know?
Well, I was 51 when I was diagnosed. I was getting a mammogram every year. First of all, breast cancer that I know of, it doesn't run in my family that I know of. My mom, way back history, was adopted. So we don't know that side of her family, father or mother. So our immediate family, we don't know any signs of it. So anyway, I was diagnosed when I was 51. It was March 6th. I had this lump under my arm, and I used to wear wire bras. And you know how sometimes they irritate you underneath your armpit or whatever. And it was there for a while. And me, like anybody else, oh, it's nothing. Well, it's just, I don't know what it is. It's irritated from the bra, whatever. No, not the case. So when I went to my doctor just for a normal doctor visit, refills, I had high blood pressure, just that normal. And I mentioned to him and I said, hey, I have this ball under my armpit. And he said, does it move? And I said, what do you mean move? Like move around. Like when you feel the nodules, they're not supposed to move. Like water, like a water bottle. I don't know, like a water thing. And I said, no, it doesn't move. And he said, okay, so, well, I'm going to go ahead and examine you. He said, so he started examining me and he said, no. And you know how you go to the doctor and you just know that look? Like, yeah, no. He said, you know what? He said, I don't think it's from that. He said, anyway, I went to go get a mammogram and get all that done. Came back like 2 days later and he said, I'm going to send you for biopsy. I went in for a biopsy and right away the guy says, we're going to go ahead and chip it. So I guess when they chip it, I didn't know what that meant at the time. And you know me, like I'm sure a lot of us say, yeah, sure. Yeah, okay, yeah. Do whatever. You're the doctor, you know?
Let me ask you something really quick.
Uh-huh.
So from the time you went to the doctor and found out you had a mammogram the year prior.
Yes.
So between your mammogram
in November, I used to get it every November around my birthday, every November.
Got it.
And then this was in March.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Okay.
So he said, I wonder, he thought that they had skipped it. So he looked back, you know, whatever. So when I went to go get my, get the biopsy, we had several of them done. The second one, when I went to go get it done, the guy chipped it and he said, I'm not going to lie, it doesn't look good. And then I was like, what do you mean it don't look good? I don't know. I said, what do you mean it don't look good? He said, yeah, he said, it doesn't really look too good. He said, and you have about 5 lymph nodes in your, and matter of fact, it's in my left breast. So he said, you have 5 lymph nodes on the top of your breast under that tumor. He said, and it doesn't look good. And I'm like, okay. Like it was just like, okay. Right. And then he said, so I'm going to send this to your doctor and he will call you back. So, you know, I went to work. Nobody knew. I didn't tell nobody. I didn't tell kids. Nothing. I didn't tell anybody. I didn't say anything. So maybe about a couple of weeks later, he called me and I was at work. And I was on a break and I answered the phone. He says, I need you to come in ASAP. And I said, like, right now? He was like, yeah, like right now. And I was like, oh, okay. So at the time, my supervisor was Christina, and I went in and I talked to her and I said, okay. So I went in.
What's going on for you in that moment? Like, do you remember what you were thinking or feeling?
Yeah. I was like, I was kind of numb because I kind of knew, you know when you know. Yeah. So I kind of knew and I was like, but I don't think cancer entered my mind at the time because I really didn't know too much about it. Yeah. But I knew it was a tumor, and I knew it was a tumor, but I didn't know it was cancerous, and the lymph nodes as well. I didn't have no idea, you know. Yeah. So when I went in, I went in and I sat down, and he said, "Well," he said, "I have some bad news," and I said, "Okay." He said, it's cancer. And I was like, what? Yeah. I just broke down. I went by myself. Nobody knew. I just did. And he says, and you have some lymph nodes that maybe about 5 of them at the top of your left breast. He says, they're cancerous as well and they have to be removed. I'm like, what? I was just like, oh my God. All I can do was, I was focused at the time. I don't know why. I looked at the clock and it was like 3:05. I was like, I don't know why. Like the clock, like time stood still maybe. I don't know. Yeah. I have no idea. Yeah. But,
so let me ask you, wow, right? And I think you are a lot like many folks, and I'll talk a little bit later on about a friend of mine's mother's story as well, that no one's talking about it like this. No. And so when you went and made the decision to go on your own, was it because you wanted to hear if there were bad news, or that you was still a sense of denial about?
No. I wanted to hear the bad news, but I didn't want to let nobody know, because to worry them yet, like not worry them, let them know yet the unknown, because it's just me and my kids. We have no other help, no other outside except for my mother. So it's not like we're close knit and we have a lot of family.
Sure.
So I didn't want to let them know at the time, because they were young still at the time. Like one of my daughters, both of my older daughters were out of high school, and I had a granddaughter, and then my other daughter was a sophomore, and then my son was an 8th grader. So I didn't want to really worry too much. You know what I mean? At that time. Yeah.
Wow. So 3:05, you heard some of the worst news that you probably will ever experience.
Yes. And the first thing I thought of was, I asked my doctor as well. I said, am I going to die? Yeah. And he said, oh, no. hopefully, no, he said no. His first thing was no. He said,
Wow.
we're going to try to get this as much as we can. We have to go further. We got to go further into this. He said, but my first thing is I'm going to have you see an oncologist.
Okay.
He says, and he can tell you more and give you more from there on. And
That's interesting, his amount of confidence
yeah,
to kind of like speak to something that
yeah,
I don't know. I would seem like it would be a little bit of unknown because we don't know progression. I would imagine
right.
he had some experience, but more importantly, his confidence in who he was as a doctor. He spoke to that.
Right, right. And then mind you, at the time he was in Lemoore. So I had to drive from Lemoore to Hanford. And then in my mind, I was just driving and I was like, where do I go? Who do I
Yeah.
tell? Where do I go? What do I do? Like, what am I going to do from here? So I just started praying and praying on the way, home. So the first thing I did is I called my boss and I let her know I wasn't returning back to work that day. And of course, I went to my mom. First thing, I went to my mom and I went over to my mom's and she got in the car and she says, can you drive me to the bank real quick? And I was like, dang, okay, come on.
Yeah.
So
You didn't tell her when she first got in.
Yeah, no. So
She had her own agenda. And
yes.
here you just heard this news
Yeah.
that, yeah. Wow.
So, yeah. And it went from there and I told her. And then when we got home and I made sure all my kids were home because they were very active. My daughter Mary was very active in sports and so was my son. So I waited till everybody got home, the other ones from work, and waited till everybody got home. And I think that was the hardest part, telling them. That was the worst part, I think.
Yeah.
Why
do you think that was?
Because to see, the first thing people think about when you hear the C word, the cancer, you're dying, you know? So I think that's what my kids had thought to begin with. Like, oh my God, she's going to die, But I let them know we're going to fight this and we're going to beat it, But they were all very emotional. Some of them ran out of the room and were crying, and some, and I had them all come back. We got to come back. So we all came back into the room, and I said, we just got to pray, and we're gonna beat this. We're gonna beat this. Yeah.
So you believed your doctor?
Oh yes. Oh yeah.
Because sometimes when doctors say things,
oh yeah,
it doesn't always resonate the same way in land on air. Like, how does he know I have cancer?
Yeah.
But you believed him.
Oh yeah, of course. Oh yeah, when he told me no, and that we're gonna get it, and then I was like, he said, but that tumor under your armpit is pretty big. Well, we think a centimeter, 2 centimeters is bitty, but to them, the bigger, like the centimeter is, the bigger it is. Like mine was a 4.
Okay.
My tumor was a 4 centimeter, which was huge to them. It was big. It was pretty big. So to them, it is big,
Yes.
To them, to us, it's like nothing. But when you're dealing with cancer and tumors and lymph nodes and nodules, to them, that is big. That's pretty big.
Well, Miss Tanika says, "Hey, Angelina, glad to hear your story. Thanks for sharing." I recognize too, as a mom, and what I'm hearing you say is single mom. It's just me and my babies to come and deliver some news. It's almost like a feeling of like helplessness. I would imagine that you can't control or protect this thing, but this is a thing that we must face.
Yes. And not just that. I thank God at the time that they've had, and they still do, the best friends that they have, that they know that is close to them, because that's the first thing they called and went out. Like my son is totally different though. He's very to himself. He don't talk about anything. He doesn't open up at all. So he never has. So, but my girls are totally different. They're very emotional. They're very talkative. They're more, so they had some really close friends and that they would call, that they called at the time. After and talk to them. And I think from there on, it was Well, let's get through the first step.
Yeah.
And we won't talk about nothing else until we get to that first step,
Which
which
was what?
chemo.
Okay.
It was
Because
chemo.
I'm reading about there's different ways of attacking it.
Yeah. Well, first, when I found out in March, we try to get a doctor here that is very well known, oncologist. His name is Chatwet. He wouldn't see me because of my insurance, and he wouldn't see me right away. And my doctor was like, "What? Like this? We're not talking about an insurance for a flu. We're talking about, I'm sure the insurance is going to cover it. It's just going to take some time, but within that time, we can start beating this." And he didn't want, well, anyway. So we found one, Dr. Bryson in Visalia, which is well known, and he's excellent. And he seen me right away. So I went like maybe 2 days later, and we found out in March, and in April I started chemo like that fast. Wow. I was like, whoa, like things were coming like so fast, like really fast. Right. And I started my chemo. First you go in for a teach. They teach you what you're going to do, what you're going to learn, how you're going to feel, what to do.
Did you have someone with you, like during the teach experience? Like, who was your support?
Yes, my mom went with me.
Okay.
And then my supervisor from work, Christina, had reminded me to record it, because when you first hear that and you hear them talking all this stuff that you've never heard before, it sounds like it's like mumble, like you don't hear it, but you hear it.
Beautiful. I'm glad she said that.
So what I did is re-recorded it. So if I had anything to say and come home, I had to relay all this to my kids, So we got through we started chemo and started getting through the first step. And I think we were like more like, let's get through this. And then whatever was next, I'll tell them what's next. And then we get through that. But yeah.
That's awesome. Let me read a comment. Brianna says, I was a freshman in high school when my mom was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. I can resonate with your kids. I remember being so scared my mom was going to die and going through all the stages of everything. Seeing my mom sick was the hardest I've ever been through. You and your family are strong. Yeah. Ms. Shonda says, I admire your bravery to share with your kids and include them in the entire way through. So that's awesome.
Yeah. And Brianna is right, because chemo was the worst.
I keep hearing that.
So it was the worst. I was on it for a whole year, but your first 6 months is the worst. Okay. That's when it's called drips, that they drip, and you have a port. I had a port in my neck, in my chest, and your first 6 months is the worst. That's when you get the sickest, like it's the worst. And it was the worst. I was hospitalized twice. The first time I was in there for a couple of days, dehydration. Okay. The second time I was in there, it was really bad. I was in there for a week. My kidneys were failing. So they put me, because I wasn't eating, and the chemo that they were giving me, one of the drips, I had 4 drips at the time. Every time I went, it took about a good hour and a half every time I went. I was going twice. I went every 2 weeks, and then it was too strong. My immune system wouldn't build up, and if it were to do that, it would definitely kill me. Just the medicine. So then I got hospitalized, and when I got out that week, Dr. Bryson said, yeah, we'll just go ahead and do a different drip. So I was going every 3 weeks for that. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I had the HER2 and that was the cancer that I had. So we went down dosage, but every time I would go in, we would go down dosage, because your immune system just goes like low, everything. Yeah, go low. So I had that. And when I got out, then I was going every 3 weeks. So by the time my 3rd week, I was feeling better, feeling a little bit good. I was able to eat a little bit.
Okay.
But then you go in for that treatment and you're down for like a week. You're sick. Like
So
you're
after you have the treatment, expect for a week, the nausea, the dehydration, not feeling well. I was reading somewhere, and my friend, who I'll talk about it in a little bit, her mom, she lost toenails, lost hair.
yeah, so did I. Yeah,
Okay.
so did I. So did I. Yeah. They give you your whole body turns like a grayish color, like you're gray. Every time I would go in for chemo, the nurses would rub this tree tea oil on my nails and on my toenails so that it wouldn't fall off. My toenails are really bad now from it. Like it has like they're bad. They fell off. They're gray. They're real brittle.
Mm-hmm.
One of them would get real thick, and then I have to put this fungus cream. But it's from the chemo.
Still today.
Yeah, I lost all my hair. All my hair. I lost it all. The eyelashes, the eyebrows, everything. You just lose it. You lose it all. You lose it all.
So for 6 months, and you had to endure these not only physical changes, what was happening mentally and emotionally with you during those 6 months?
I'm gonna tell the truth. Those first 6 months, half of them, the only thing I remember is being sick. Like when you see those pictures about people laying in the bathroom, hovered over the toilet, that was me in my hallway, in the other bathroom, and my daughters would take turns, especially Mary. She would rub towels on me and sit in there with me, and I'm in there, she's in there bringing me water, and it was all hours of the night. It was all I just sometimes they would wake me up and say, "Come on, mom, get up, go to bed," and I couldn't because I knew I was going to come right back, and it was hard. It was hard.
And so thank you for being very honest, because I think,
And I don't, the first 6, I really don't remember, Devondria, and I don't even remember how my car got paid. I had a car payment.
wow.
I don't remember how my cars were getting paid. My house rent was getting paid, the bills.
Right.
My kids took on a lot of that because I don't remember saying, "Oh, go pay the rent." Oh, go. I don't. There's a lot I don't remember. So my mental state was, I don't know where it was. I don't know where it was.
Those things didn't become, those are secondary importance.
Yeah.
Right?
I don't
remember.
remember
If I'm puking and can't eat and hair falling out.
Yeah. I don't remember where it was. I really don't. I don't remember where it was.
Wow.
Yeah.
Let me just read. Ruby says, this speaks victory in many more levels than health. Any bad news can cause you to spiral. Your trust and hope was healing for you. Powerful. Yeah. Jeanette says, continue being the strong and great woman you are, Angelina. Keep sharing your story. It's very powerful. And I agree. I think, too, we don't know this. No. We don't hear about it. And I can tell you that I have, as an aunt who went through it, and I don't know much about her story about it. I just can remember praying for her, but I didn't get this, right? Nobody gets to hear this. And you're telling me about kids who are still in high school and middle school, taking upon a responsibility that most regular, whatever that means, teenagers don't have to endure, and still make it and still be, successful despite having to put their life or pieces of their day on hold to take care of mom.
Yeah. And then a lot too came from the community. Like, I was so thankful, I shouldn't say community, but family. Like my son did a travel ball, and those baseball families came through a lot. The schools as well as the agency did a lot of fundraisers. And where my son went to school at JFK, they did a lot of fundraisers, and the money came. They were calling my kids to come and pick them up, pick up the money, and then my daughters would put it to where it needed to go. But I the after that, I was on chemo for a year. The last 6 months, you still do a drip, but it's not as bad.
Okay.
You're barely trying to recoup, and it's like a maintenance. The last 6 months of the chemo is like a maintenance. It's like a maintenance type.
Did you, during the first 6 months, having to go through everything that you were going through, the throwing up, all of that, and I love that Christina said record it, right? Because I can only imagine life stopping for a moment again. But did you then still believe your doctor that you were coming through it?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
That changed your mind that you were going through those things. You knew this was part of the process.
Yeah, that I did. I really did. But the second time that I ended up in the hospital, I was like, I can't. I said it, and my kids would come visit me, and I was like, I can't do this no more.
Yeah.
Like, I can't, because they had told me that when I ended up in the hospital the second time that they might have to put me, because my kidneys were failing.
Right.
So they were going to put me on, what is that? Dialysis.
Dialysis, yeah.
And I said, there's no way I can do dialysis and chemo. I can't. It would definitely, I can't. There's just no way. And I told my kids, I'm going to have to pick and choose. And I said, I'm dialysis would have to be it, because it's going to keep me alive.
Right.
So that was another emotional thing there, but we got through it, thank God. And I came out of it, and I fought, and I was like, they said, well, you have to eat, you got to drink, you got to get better. And the doctor told me, you can't get it come out until you have to actually eat something. Yes. So yeah, so that was the hard part. I think that was the hardest part, eating, trying to eat. But
right. Shonda says your kids took on responsibilities most partners can't or don't. That speaks volumes of not only their love for you, but the way they were raised.
Yes.
Yeah. You have some amazing kids.
Yeah.
So 6 months pass by, you're feeling better, you're doing the maintenance part, you're a year out, finished chemo. What was it like to ring that bell? And I see of people who go to that bell.
That's radiation.
Okay, so that's with radiation. Okay,
that's with radiation. See, when I did chemo, I was still doing chemo when I started doing radiation. I had radiation. No, I had surgery in November. It's coming up. I had surgery in November, and when we went in to do surgery, it was supposed to be maybe like they said probably about an hour to 2 hours. But we went in for surgery. It was a 5-hour procedure. Wow. Because there was 8 lymph nodes instead of 5.
Oh my goodness! And in the left breast. Yes.
So it's called a partial. It's called a partial that I had, but mastectomy. But yeah. So there was it took probably about 5 hours. So I couldn't imagine my kids and my mom and them in the waiting room waiting, because it was only supposed to take, a couple of hours. Yeah. And it ended up being a 5-hour procedure. Wow. Yeah. And so, then after that, I had radiation.
Okay. Yeah. And so then, a partial or full or double, and I've heard, mastectomy, and I am going to speak to my friend's experience when her mother had to have the full done. And I wondered what that's like, because when we think about what makes women is reproduction, it is identification with our bodies. Yeah. And so to even have a partial or full or both, how did that experience?
Well,
what was that for you?
Well, in Visalia, when I seen one surgeon in Visalia before we seen the second one, which is was Dr. Bryson we were a lot better with. The first one told me that I was going to have to have that I was going to have one removed, one of my breasts, the left one. And I said, no, if we do that, we're just going to go ahead and do both. He said, are you sure? I said, yeah, I'm not just going to do one. I will do both.
Okay.
And then
why did you say that?
Just thinking that, okay, we're going to get that one. What about the other one? You know? And I think maybe it was self-esteem when I had to look at in the mirror.
Sure.
And then we talked about, well, after a year, when we remove them, you can have surgery and we can do implants. Okay. I said, no, I'm not even going to do that. Well, I wouldn't do that. I don't think I would do that.
Okay.
So, well, anyway, when after we got done with him, he said, but there's a lot of health risks when you have to have them removed. You just don't have them removed and you think there's nothing else going to happen. A lot of people have problems breathing. A lot of people have problems with the heart.
Really?
Oh yeah, there's a lot. You don't just get them removed and think there's nothing going to happen. You got a lot, because you got to remember, you're removing those. Where's those blood vessels going? Where do they have to make them go? Yeah. Where does that blood have to flow? Now you're working double in other areas.
Wow.
So after we left there, well, anyway, Dr. Bryson said, no, I don't think that's going to have to happen, because we're trying the chemo to shrink those. So anyway, we seen another surgeon and he was a lot better. He said, no, we don't have to do that.
Okay.
We just do a partial.
Nice. Yeah. Again, those considerations that you don't think about. And so just even providing that information makes sense to me.
Yeah.
But who's thinking about those things, especially when, during this day, this is your body, this is your life. And I agree. That's why I asked you about why did you think that? Because let's be honest, self-esteem is a part of it. Self-preservation and identity absolutely is a part of it. And for women, when we think about really kind of what defines us, unfortunately, is linked to our bodies.
Yeah. And not just that, a lot of people, like when they were doing all this, and that one surgeon was telling me that we were going to just remove them both, and it was an option for me. He was like, well, he said they have bras that have waters in them that you can buy, but Victoria's Secret provides them for you lifetime free. And then I was like, and not knowing that either, a lot of people don't know. But then he was telling me, he said, so your self-esteem is, you have something there if you don't want reconstructive. And then I was like, yeah, okay. Because there's a lot of things that I didn't know and when you're done with chemo and radiation and the surgery, you have a lot of side effects still after this. You have a lot. You still have a lot. You still go through a lot.
So move me to when they said you're done with radiation, you get to ring the bell.
Oh my God, it's recorded. So when my anniversary, yeah. Oh my gosh. Yes. That was like, radiation for me was a hard one too. Like I got burned. It's so bad. It was on my back. It was on top of my neck. That was bad. But ringing that bell and them ladies there, oh my gosh, it was. But you get that certificate and you're like, yay! To go through that, I did 7.5 weeks, 15-minute sessions every day, except for weekends.
Wow.
Yeah. So the burn at the first week or half, I didn't feel anything. They give you this cream and you rub this cream all over you. And they say, make sure you do it every day. Make sure. And I was rubbing it. And the lady came in and she said, oh, well, you look pretty good. You haven't got burnt yet. And I said, no. And I was rubbing. I said, yeah, maybe I won't, nothing will happen. And then I'm getting undressed and one of the other ladies next to me waiting after me said, oh, you're so lucky. You haven't got anything. She says, but be careful because there can be like a little red dot. Don't rub it because that's what that is. And it's going to start coming. And what happened?
Oh my goodness. Then you was
Yes.
like, I didn't escape, huh?
Yeah, but when they say smell your flesh burning, I smelled my flesh burning. I was really bad. Yeah.
No, listen, if
Yeah.
you are listening to this, whether it's recorded or not, I mean, I think unless you are really close to someone who's going through the experience, you're so far removed that
Yeah.
you think you hear cancer, you hear, radiation, you hear chemo, and you can move on about your day thinking, oh, this is it's a process that people are going through, but you don't understand the underlying things that are happening that we don't get to see because no one's really talking about, and maybe they are.
Maybe.
But you are, I would say, I thank you because you're the first experience that I've really heard the behind the scene experience and the feelings connected and just being very blatant and honest with it, right? Just like the one thing I can say that the couple people that I know that have the experience or close to someone is that even when their doctor said they wouldn't, they'd make it, they didn't believe it because like you said, the C word equal death for a lot of, immature folks, whether it's because of age or just lack of knowledge.
Yeah.
And to think that one can survive it, but you have so many experiences. Let me ask you, now that it's been 5 years, are there anything that has triggered for you? Like if you touch something or you smell something, or has there been any aftermath experiences that bring you back to any of those moments?
Yeah, there is. The first big thing is my 5-year anniversary is coming up, and they say after your 5-year mark is a big mark because that's when it's supposed to, if you're going to get it back or if you're going to re-get it, that's the year.
Really?
So most people that have had cancer of any sort, but breast cancer mostly, their 5-year mark, a lot that I have known, regain it back. So Mary, my daughter Mary, goes to Fresno State, and she's on a Zoom with her teacher last week, and she's a female. Her 5-year mark was up, and she let them know last Thursday that she had breast cancer again. So her teacher is going through that, and her 5-year mark had just came up. We lost a close friend of ours not too long ago. Me and her were fighting it at the same time. And a couple of months ago, she passed from it, came back and she passed from it. My daughter Crystal's friend had it for many years and was in remission for many years and then came back. Yeah. I think that's I can't help but think back. That's like in the back of your mind, that. But I'm such a big believer in God, and my faith is growing every day. We go to church every Sunday. We pray a lot. So that's my faith. So I believe he's my healer. The power of prayer got us through so much. The power of prayer is unbelievable, unbelievable. So when three think alike and pray alike, it happens. So
come on.
So
I'm in agreement.
I really believe in that. So my faith is overall. So if that's what he chooses for me to do, then we'll deal with that again at the time when it comes. But everybody is different. Nobody does like you said at the beginning. Everybody deals with things different. Everybody is different in their body. So I'm just glad and thankful for my kids and stuff that I'm still here, because he wouldn't have me here to fight it again. I don't think he would put me through that again. So, yeah.
Listen, she just preached a whole word. Y'all get that sermon? Y'all said 999 to get that sermon. She just preached a whole word. Yes.
But
Well,
yeah.
Crystal Scholl says, God's got you, and so do we, Mama. What life brings, we tackle together. I love you and admire you so much. Shonda said yes and amen. Crystal came back to say, I love you, Mama. And God. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's just a repeat.
Yeah.
I will forever admire your strength. And that is so beautiful. What you have taught your children in this experience, and what they have learned in this experience, and what life is going to bring for them, they're going to tackle too, because it is your strength that they got to see.
And if it wasn't for them, I don't know where I would be too. Yeah.
Well, and I thank God that you drew off of his strength and he is your healer. Yeah. So I, just to kind of resonate with everything that you're saying, I talked to a friend of mine because her mom did make it from breast cancer and passed at the young age of 43. And I just asked her about her experience with breast cancer, because that's it, right? I mean, some survive and some don't, and none of us know our day or our number and what it will be from. And I asked her because I had just seen it, not even maybe, these algorithms and, they hear you talking and they start posting stuff. So I came across the story of a young woman in her 30s saying she had, she's at stage 4, but she has started asking about tests to be done in her 20s, and everybody put it off. Well, my friend said that's the same thing that happened with her mom. And she said, if there's one thing that I would tell people is be your own advocate.
Yes.
And do not stop. But this lady who was a military spouse had moved from place to place and went from doctor to doctor. And they said, you're too young. That nodule, that bump, that's nothing. It'll go away. And it did not. 6 years later, when she went back to her hometown, she was at stage 4, and it's in her bones. It's in her liver. It's spread, and she believes that she will die. But she said, if there's one thing I leave, is to advocate and do not let them send you out. And so when I talked to my friend this morning, she said her mother at 35 is when she got diagnosed. Between 35 and 37. What I'm reading about is under the age of 40 is the most popular diagnosis. From 15 to 34, 15.
No.
I'm just like, oh my goodness. And so she said her mother started having discharge out of her nipple, and they wrote it off as just, it's okay, and all those other things. And she went home, and she knew something wasn't right. And she said, this is my friend saying, if you feel a lump, more times than not, you already have it by then. And so her mother had found a lump, and they at 35 and 37, by the time they checked her, they had to remove her uterus and both breasts.
Oh.
So at 35 to 37, that's why I asked you about, as a woman, and knowing that reproduction is kind of our womanhood, and our breasts are part of our womanhood, and to get those removed. And she did decide to go with the implants, but she said they didn't look the same. She goes, even when you get them, once you've had them removed, it just looked, she couldn't really describe it. I could tell there was kind of like a breakdown of how to describe. Probably the good word would be deformity, right? Yeah. There's a deformity there, even if you do get these implants. And I can only imagine that self-esteem that you talked about was huge during that time, because you don't have the breast, and now you don't have the uterus. And, praise God that she had both, I think, 2 children by then. So what she said her mom started becoming an advocate out in the community. Like, she took professional pictures, and she started being on billboards in Kentucky about breast cancer. So she took what we see a lot of times as what, may seem as a tragedy, and used it as an opportunity to educate. So I asked her, how was it like being a child watching? And this probably is something I could have asked your children. And so, Crystal, I know you're on. If you want to chime in about what that experience was like for you, hearing the diagnosis, your personal understanding about it, please put it in the chat. She was 22, so she was a little bit old, but she said, she believes both kids. She was pregnant. She already had one. And she just knew, she didn't know enough about cancer and breast cancer. Again, us just being uneducated. she didn't know enough to kind of like be fully aware of the severity and the intensity of it. But she knew enough to go back, and she kind of helped her mom. And it sounds like a lot like what you described. When she found out, she was there during the chemo process, the throwing up, the toenails falling off, the hair falling out. She could just hear her and, providing that support that she could give, but she can't take it away. And I think this is where children want to be the parent. We want to take it away from mom, that pain away, that upset, that frustration, those emotional and physical complication. As I know, when my mom was really ill, I wanted to take that from her, right? But that's not how it works, right? We want to still protect you as the mom, even though we're going through those things. But she said, these are her words, is she felt like as a Black mom, as a mom of color, that's her only relation. I would imagine all moms, right, want to not make it as bad as what it is.
Yeah.
I want to make sure that I'm still staying strong. So really not saying how they felt, kind of like how you were mentally and emotionally.
Yeah.
Until that's your only desperation. It wasn't until my liver, my kidneys are failing that I don't think I can do it.
Yeah.
Prior to that, all you see in maybe some of the physical distress, but not really knowing the emotional and the mental process, because that's something we internalize.
Yeah.
And so she said, going to the doctor's appointments, she said when she was put in the hospice, now mind you, this woman's 43 years old, she was put in the hospice. So she was able, my friend as a military spouse went back to Kentucky to be with her, that she had a second wind. And she said had a second wind that month before she died. So they were out shopping, and this had already spread into her bones. And she said bone cancer is horrible.
Mm-hmm.
So now that it spread into her bones, she thought maybe she was overly hopeful that her mom will pull through, because look, I'm looking at her, we're going shopping.
Yeah. They say that happens though.
Yes, I've heard that as well. And so to hear that she was overly hopeful, and she said it was just kind of like this weird thing that she thought she was still going to pull through. Mm-hmm. So when she actually died on August 29th, she didn't understand it, because we were just shopping a month ago.
Yeah.
So I think that is kind of like our brain's way of protecting us too, right? Because if you had to consider that your mom was going to die next month, or that was going to be the case, it would have been too much to bear.
Yes.
And she wouldn't have enjoyed that second win part of it.
Yeah.
And just hearing her experience of that, and I know I have my own experience. It wasn't due to breast cancer, but it was still an illness that I had to watch my mom go through.
Yeah.
And I can say as a child, even though I was an adult child, it's still a helpless situation. So I think people like Pauline, who was open enough to share that story this morning, and then I thank you for sharing your experience and your journey, a journey that you're still on, because you get to share it now in a different way.
Yeah. Yeah. And not just that, I think like for me, my journey it will always be, but like when I was talking like the aftermaths, like, yeah, I have my bad days, but sometimes you get up and you just figure, look what I've been through, look where I'm at, because the cancer is still streaming in you. Especially like after your chemo and radiation, they say sometimes it takes years to get back. You'll never be normal. First of all, you'll never be normal. You're never going to be back to normal. So sometimes I get up and my bones hurt. My back hurts a lot. Just certain things that, still bother you from it, but I'm glad I'm back.
Trauma.
Yeah.
It's trauma of the body.
I'm glad I'm back to work. Yes. I'm glad I'm able to provide now. It's just a blessing. It's a blessing.
Yeah. So I would say, even though this is labeled breast cancer survivor, we know that just hearing you, and I know this woman get up, she's walking 3 miles almost every day. She's running after her grandchildren. She's
Yeah.
at her kids' functions.
Yeah.
And, that's a victor.
Yeah.
It's more than a place of survivorship. It is victoriousness, if that's a word. It is a place of victory because, survivors still kind of live under an element of threat.
Yes.
And that's not what I'm hearing. I'm hearing that, I'm getting up, I'm back at work. This woman has worked with kids 16 years. Let me tell you something, she got it in order. Listen, I was just here a couple of weeks ago. She got that thing in order.
I try.
The kids love her.
It's a team. It's a team.
Absolutely.
It's a team. It takes team. It takes other strong team behind you as well. It takes you to come out there and help us and tell us what we could do different and what we can't do. You're a blessing and you just don't know, but you're a blessing. A very big one. I
appreciate that. Thank you. So if we had to leave people, anyone, because what I'm seeing from 15 to 34 years old, breast cancer is the second leading cause of death in the cancer families.
And Devondre, wait, let me interfere.
Please.
It is the cancer that kill, that take us. But the number one thing that my doctor told me, Dr. Bryson, when I was starting this, he said that a majority of the people die from an infection somewhere, that the cancer just can't fight it. Say that, like when I was going through radiation, my biggest fear was because I was so raw everywhere that it was infection was going to kill me. Same thing with Dr. Bryson. When you're going through chemo, there's a lot of things I didn't go out of my house for, I don't even know how long. People didn't come to visit. People didn't come in my house.
Yeah.
My kids left, went to school, whatever, came home, changed, washed up, being around me, because the infection that they can bring in could kill me.
Yes.
So he said that as well. Like, people don't realize that are going through chemo and have chemo, they feel good the following week after it. They get up, put on a mask and go to the store, because now we have to wear those masks. But back then, 4 years ago, 5 years, I was wearing a mask.
Yeah.
And you didn't realize how important it is until now that you have to wear it all the time for this other virus that's going on. But I didn't go anywhere. And he said, if you do, you put that mask on. So everywhere I went, back to his office, everywhere, we wore masks back then.
Yeah. Wow.
And he said, because that infection can get into your bloodstream and kill you. And you just don't know. And that cancer will kill you like that because you can't fight that off.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. The way I've been recently told, as I have a family member who is healed by the name of Jesus from bone cancer, is that it's like an immune system of a baby, and like it's been stripped down.
Oh yeah.
And so people, and I'm glad you said that. So people going through it right now in COVID season, even greater. Even it just increased the amount of potential that could cause, obviously, worse problems, because you don't have that immune system to fight off these viruses and things that we take for granted, like common colds, could potentially kill someone.
Yes.
And so I thank you for sharing that part. And so, which leads in, Shonda says, Aiden says hi.
Oh, Aiden.
Still impacting people, right?
Yes.
What would you want people to know, or to, and one thing I will say right now is advocacy, strong advocacy. But what would you also say to someone who doesn't know, should get checked? My friend, she had to start getting mammograms at 30 because her mom was so young.
My girls too. They start at 25.
Okay.
So my Crystal was having nodules way back, and we having those checked every year. They as well have to get mammograms every year. Let me plug in the charger. But my thing I would leave would be get checked. Don't put it off. Don't we as women a lot, but men too
Yes.
get breast cancer.
Yes, I
And
heard that.
yes, and it's very common in men as well.
Yes.
A lot of men didn't know that they could get it that I've talked to, and I've tell I'm so always willing to talk all the time. So a lot of them didn't know. So, but a majority of women get checked. Don't put it off.
Yes.
Get checked. If you have to start checking, they say what at 40, you start getting mammograms.
Yes.
If you feel uncomfortable and get second opinions. Get second opinions. If you're not okay with one and you really think you know your body, you know yourself, you know your body. So yeah.
That's huge. Number one is, men get not the publicity that women get, but I just heard a lady said that if it's 1 in 5 women, then it's like 1 in 10 or 20 men. That it's still that prevalent. Number two, do self checks.
Yes.
So if you are young and if these numbers are correct of what this onhealth.com is saying, 15 to 34, 15 years old, start doing self checks. And if you need mom to teach you, if as parents, we need to teach our girls and boys sound like, right? We need to teach them how to do self examinations. We have the gift of technology that you can Google, you can YouTube, and I'm sure it's very open and graphic to where you could go step by step. Another thing that I've heard about, and I didn't do much research on it, but I'm sure anyone can, is pay attention to lumps around the time of your menses or cycle, because that could be false reading.
Yes.
Potentially. Is that what you've heard too, Angelina?
Yes, it is. It is. They say, or also after you've had a baby and you're breastfeeding.
Okay.
That as well, if you're breastfeeding, those lumps can be milk ducts.
Yes, that makes sense.
Yeah, they can be milk ducts, but you need to check if you stop breastfeeding within the last time. Well, they say that if you're breastfeeding and you no longer, say 3-4 months later, and you no longer have milk coming from your breast, then start checking. And if it's an unusual and you don't think it, also when you check your nodules and they hurt, they say cancer doesn't hurt. The nodules don't hurt. Mine, none of mine hurt.
Right.
So the doctor says that if it's a nodule and it hurts, have it checked, but more likely it's not cancer, but have it checked.
Yeah,
but
I agree.
Because cancer nodules don't hurt.
And one other thing that Angelina mentioned that I think is important as we are wrapping up is don't make assumptions about your body. Like she said, it was the underwire in the bra. Oh, it's just that. But she knew, and I'm so thankful that she brought it up at a regular appointment. How many times do we just show up and don't say anything? Oh, it's nothing, and keep moving. We're not doctors, people. No. And even if you are a doctor or a nurse, because I got nurses probably they bad. They know they're bad.
Yeah,
they're the worst ones about it, even though they it. So just go get things checked out.
Yes.
Don't take it for granted that it's nothing.
Don't wait.
Yes, I agree 125% with that. And then more importantly, be a support for those who are going through it. This is what I kept hearing with Angelina is support.
Yes.
Whether it was her children, whether it was the children's travel team, whether it was her job, small community people that she was connected to reached out and it's okay to let people do that.
It is. And before I'm a strong woman and I was like, I could do this on my own. I don't need no help. I was always like that. I never asked for help. I could do this. I never asked for help. I never wanted somebody to feel sorry and give. And so I never asked. But at this time, oh yeah.
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 And it's probably a humbling experience all in
Yeah.
itself,
Oh, yes.
especially if you are
Oh,
used
yeah.
to doing everything on your own,
Oh,
but we
yeah.
were created.
Yes.
God
Yes.
created us to not be alone. And so allow people to be there for you,
Yeah.
allow people to share an experience and be a blessing, right?
Yes.
So I just love that. Is there, before we get off, first, I just want to say thank you, thank you, thank you for coming on, sharing your story. I've been wanting to get you for a minute.
Mhm.
And as much as I wanted to have this opportunity during Breast Cancer Awareness Month, I was like, no, every month is awareness for
Yeah,
physical,
it sure is.
mental, emotional, spiritual health. So we gonna
Yeah.
bring on, even if it's the month after, and it's, I mean, based on the comments, and you can probably read them when we get off. You're a blessing to so many people just by sharing your story and being vulnerable enough to say it was tough.
Yes.
And guess what? I still have my moments, but I'm an overcomer and I'm victorious. And we thank God for you.
Mhm.
So, is there anything that you would like to say as we head out?
No, just thanks. Thank you for having me on here. Thank you for giving me opportunity to talk to somebody out there that maybe later on hears it and has questions and don't know. But thank you for having me on here and letting me share. I'm always willing to share my story. Always, always.
She is. So if you are somebody who is going through the process of chemo, radiation, or just getting the diagnosis, and you want support from Angelina because she has been there and gone through it, reach out to me. You can go on fitchatchitchat@gmail.com. I will get you linked to her. So don't feel like you have to walk through this on your own. And so we here at Finding Inner Transformation, we believe that we are, each other's helper. We're, our brother's keeper, our sister's keeper. So just reach out. If there's a topic that you want to come on and share, email me at fitchatchitchat@gmail.com. You can find me on Facebook and Instagram at Fit Therapist. And you can find me on YouTube. More recently, just changed the name to Fit Therapist, but it is under the business name of Finding Inner Transformation. So we just thank you for joining us today. We thank you all for your input, your feedback, and your comment. And we just hope that you have a blessed day. Thank you for joining us.
Thank
And
you, guys. Thank you.